Let's talk some Ravens football with a man who has been around Baltimore sports for so long. He has integrated himself as part of the fabric. 25 years, WNST.net. You can also hear him on Baltimore, same thing, WNST, Baltimore Sports AM 1570. Nestor Aparicio with us right now. Nestor, it's Alex Marvez and Tim Brown. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It is a beautiful morning in Baltimore. We get to sit around and just watch games on Sunday.
Say it one more time, Nestor.
We just get to sit around and watch games on Sunday, you know? So
know, right?
it's a good weekend for us.
I tell you what, Nestor, you're watching a Baltimore Ravens team that continues to improve, I think, on a weekly basis. You were in Green Bay to watch that 23-0 shutout. What are some of the things that you're starting to see from the Ravens down the stretch that may have you bullish on this team working its way in the playoffs?
Well, the first thing is the schedule, right? They're going to play a bunch of backup quarterbacks. They're going to play a bunch of teams that definitely aren't going to the playoffs, and there aren't a whole lot of those in the AFC because everyone's sort of alive. But it really does start with the fact that they've got moving parts now back in. Ronnie Stanley looks like he's going to play again. They got Woodhead back, who played one series and made 3 first-down catches in Cincinnati and disappeared for the better part of 10 weeks. Brandon Williams, getting him back was huge. Marshall Yonda's really the big guy who's not coming back, and the offensive line's been in flux. And it's been that way really since Flacco had a back ailment that held him out of training camp, and they started losing O-linemen one a day for about a week at the end of August, and they've really been picking up the pieces all season long. The offense is a mess. They thought they were going to give the ball to Terrence West. They thought they were going to give the ball to Buck Allen, and as it turns out, they're giving the ball to Alex Collins, a kid from Arkansas who rode the pine in Seattle last year, didn't get an opportunity, now has an opportunity, fumbled a couple times early, but he's been a real breath of fresh air because at least they wake up every week knowing who they want to give the football to. And from a wide receiver perspective, 4 weeks ago, they were running around with Michael Campanaro, Chris Moore, and Griff Whalen. That was the entire wide receiving core. Now it's back to Macklin. It's back to Wallace. It's Perryman's been a guy that's had a hard time getting on the field because he's been a failed draft pick for them now in year 3.
Wow. Hey, Nestor, I'm sitting here looking at the stats at Baltimore, and I was shocked to see that they're last in passing. And I know you're talking about making a playoff run, but can they really do that if they can't throw the ball down the field? I hear what you're saying about getting the receivers back, and do you think that's going to make the difference, huh?
I don't think there's any way you could look at this team over 10 weeks and say this is a good football team as comprised or for what they've accomplished. Defensively, they've pitched 3 shutouts. That kind of goes without saying that the defense, especially against the likes of Tom Savage, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Kaiser, what they're going to see the rest of the way, I think the defense is going to carry the way. Then the question is, can the offense at least be productive? Can they maintain drives? Can they use the leg of Justin Tucker to maybe squeak out a couple of 48 or 55-yard field goals that maybe other teams wouldn't even try this time of the year to put extra points up on the board? But I think if we're looking for a prolific offense from this group right now, if it comes to life in late December, early January, I think everybody would be pleasantly surprised. But really, it's been about protecting Flacco throwing underneath and dumping off a lot because he hasn't had a whole lot of time. And the offensive line has been a bunch of moving parts at this point. If they can get all of that solidified, certainly in Macklin, certainly in Wallace, certainly in Ben Watson, they have guys we all know of, we've all heard of, they've all been accomplished guys in this league. They're all on the other side of 30. I mean, Watson's closer to 40. But can they be productive here down the stretch? I think they can. I think they're going to make the playoffs. And then you say, well, how could they win the Super Bowl? I don't think anybody here is going to make that case, but I think you can make a case that they can go to Jacksonville, they can go to Nashville, they can go to Kansas City, or even L.A. or wherever the Chargers are playing these days in the first week of January and steal a football game by playing good defense, and then they would have to go to Pittsburgh or New England. But that's the track they're on right now. And I think, and Alex, you were in the locker room in Green Bay, that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about, hey, we string together a couple of wins here. If we can get to 9, maybe 10, but I think if they can get to 9, they're going to be that 6th team, and that's going to be a road trip that's going to be a pretty benign first weekend. Whoever gets that slot is going to have to go to Kansas City or Jacksonville or Nashville, and I don't think there's anything intimidating about that.
Talk with Nestor Aparicio, WNST.net, also WNST AM 1570 in Baltimore, a man who knows his stuff on the Baltimore Ravens at every function, seemingly everywhere. And Nestor, it was a special moment for John Harbaugh, getting his 100th career victory, also getting it done at Lambeau Field. And after the game, Joe Flacco and Terrell Suggs honored him in the locker room. Tell us a little bit about John Harbaugh and longevity at the position, because very few coaches in this league make it through their first 3 or 4 seasons, let alone the decade that John Harbaugh has. And also, every year, even if this Ravens team doesn't make the postseason, they're always knocking on the door of it. What is it that has led to John Harbaugh having so much success in the NFL?
Well, I think the pedigree of John to begin with, right? I mean, the fact that John was never a guy that aspired to be a head coach in the National Football League and really had thought of himself as a college coach and was looking to get the Boston College job. He was rumored to have the UCLA job. I mean, his life could have gone in a lot of different directions, and he was not the hot candidate. He was a guy, quite frankly, that Brian Billick had recommended to Ozzie Newsome on the word of Andy Reid out of Philadelphia after Brian was fired. And, I researched all this after they won a championship because I got to write a book about it. And going back to John waking up every day in Ann Arbor with a brother that was, on a superstar track and a father that was a ball coach, and that's all he did was ball coach stuff. And Steve Bisciotti really bought into that early on. And again, it really does speak to organizations. I mean, right now, Ben McAdoo probably wouldn't be standing in most places in the league because somebody would have flushed him out 2 weeks ago, just based on the energy that was coming out of there from a media standpoint. Steve has seen it through. Steve has only fired one coach in Brian and hired John. John is his hand-picked guy. Steve has never hired a general manager, an assistant general manager, never hired anybody in the scouting department because Ozzie came inherited. There's a lot about this organization that's never changed. That's much more like the Steelers or much more like stable franchises, which I guess New England, maybe Cincinnati, a couple other places you'd say Green Bay, stable, but there aren't a whole lot of those. So, John has had the opportunity to have a quarterback that he got married to at the very beginning that they came in together, and it's worked out. And as much as every Monday I deal with the internet fallout being a sports radio guy, Alex, of fire the coach, bench the quarterback, the defensive coordinator sucks, the offensive coordinator sucks. Hey, Harbaugh fired his OC in week 12 and won the Super Bowl 6 weeks later. I mean, there's just some magical, weird stuff, and John has a real sixth sense about this. And if the Ravens fired John because they falter down the stretch, which certainly they could. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs, guys, that means they lost to Deshaun Kaiser, or they lost at home to Jacoby Brissett, or they lost at home to Marvin the last week of the year. And if they don't make the playoffs, there might be changes around here, and I think everybody should question how long Ozzie is going to want to do this. So at some point, there's going to be some movement, but I think Harbaugh is going to be the big winner here because I really do believe, and I think Vegas believes this, you guys probably believe this, I think the Ravens are going to be playing football the first weekend of January against all odds. I'm not going to say they're a great team, but they could be that team that gets better next month and becomes a noisy team in January because they have the pedigree to do that.
Hey, Nestor, I know all too well. Matter of fact, I still have nightmares about the dominance of the Baltimore Ravens defense back in the day. But one of the things that the Ravens have been known for is stopping the run, and not so much this year. I mean, they're bottom 6 in the league as far as stopping the run. We all know this time of year, teams are going to try to run the ball on you. What does this team have to do to shore up their run defense?
Well, I think getting Brandon Williams back was huge, as well as Pierce. I think they've been better against the run. Some of those stats are probably beginning in the Jacksonville game, then going through Pittsburgh. I mean, this was a bad football team in October. When they were losing to the Chicago Bears and getting run around on and getting pushed around by a rookie quarterback making his first road start, Mitch Trubisky, things didn't look good around here. So I think statistically, defensively stopping the run sets up everything they want to do, which is get a neophyte quarterback, chucking the ball around the way Brett Hundley did last week in Green Bay, and having the Weddles and the Jimmy Smiths. This kid Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama is going to be a really good football player, pushing a former starter in Brandon Carr really to the bench over the weekend because I think he'll be playing more nickel. You'll see against teams that are going to try to be more multiple in their wide receiver sets. The Ravens have some deep depth in the secondary that they never had before. Even going back to Rex Ryan when the Willie Gastons and they're pulling guys off the street to go play cornerback at the end of the Billick administration. The secondary hasn't been the same since Ed Reed went away and since Chris McAllister went away. Jimmy Smith's had trouble getting on the field. He has had a fully healthy season, and he looks like a Pro Bowl cornerback. He looks like a top 10 cornerback in the league. We had waited for that. We're waiting on Brashad Perryman on the other side of the ball, but defensively, they want to get you in bad D&D and get the ball up in the air and go get the football.
You follow him on Twitter at Nestor Aparicio. He knows his stuff on the Baltimore Ravens and everything going on in that city. WNST.net, Baltimore Sports AM 1570. Nestor, happy Thanksgiving to you and Jen. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning.
An honor and a pleasure. Thanks to you, Tim, as well. It was always a pleasure watching you play, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
There we go. Nestor Aparicio. Love the energy, huh?
Thanks, Nestor. I appreciate it, man.
You got it, man. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Have a good weekend, man.